Finance and Budget Review Committee to order.
4:30.
2:30?
That means it's happy hour.
It's 2:30.
It's 2:30.
He's got happy hour on the brain.
Jenny, if you could do the roll call.
I will. Member Polanowski,
Present.
Member Allen,
Present.
Member English,
Present.
Vice Chair Greiger.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Well, we get to continue our workshop here, and thanks for getting the budget or the slides added that we made the request. I appreciate that. So if does anybody here have any comments? And, the Pledge of Allegiance. We'd all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, Kathy. Any comments from the committee?
I just think it's an incredible body of work. It was enlightening.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, well, Devin, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, well, excellent. Devin Schmidt, Finance Director for the City of St. Pete Beach, for the record. So today we're going to take you through what we're calling kind of the story of ad valorem taxes. So where do our taxes come from? Who pays them? And I think it's important to set that we're going to make this a new standard for every budget process every year. We'll bring, here's the different buckets of funding, here's the different millages, so that this review committee and the commission has the opportunity to see that information and then provide a recommendation or an approach of how we should proceed. I think it's also important to note that our budget is balanced off of our current millage rate. So our operating budget, we are balanced there. So I did want to highlight that. So after we go through our story about ad valorem, then we're going to take you through just any changes that have occurred in the budget since we met last, and then we'll be looking for a recommendation from the committee as we typically do with these workshops. So to kick it off, we're going to dive into our ad valorem taxes. So we wanted to note how important it is that 20% of everyone's property tax bill stays local in St. Pete Beach, and the other 80% is going back out to schools, county, EMS, and then other districts. So we just decided, let's look at the taxable value of a home at $500,000 just for easier math, and show this budget review committee what that looks like and how many of those dollars are spent, come back locally into our city's general fund. So this next slide, we were looking at, we're going to take you through bigger pictures, and then we're going to drill it down and take different pieces of these pie charts. So we're going to spend a lot of time looking at just how these different tax bases are made up. So the big picture is that 70% of our revenues that we receive are non-homestead properties. So that makes up about $11 million in our revenues for our general fund. And then the homestead properties account for 30%, or $4.7 million in revenues for the city. So all of this information we get from the Pinellas County website that I listed there. That was the one where I said, you know, if you want to dive in and look at the details and nerd out with me, feel free. It's been fun. So feel free to utilize that website. That's exactly where this information came from. So on this next slide, Colonel had made a request for us to show how much of that is residents versus commercial. So 72%, or 11.3 million, is residents. 3.7 million, or 24%, is commercial. And then we have about 600,000, or 4%, that's mixed use. So that's either both residential and commercial. So that could be a mixed use where it's a vertical residence, you know, located on the upper floors with commercial on the bottom, or horizontal. It could also be home-based businesses. So Florida law does permit for businesses to be within a residential home as well. So it could be any one of those categories as we're looking at the both category. So moving on and diving into what homestead shows. So what we know from looking at the data is that 70% is single family. So what that tells us is that people who live here 100% of the time are living in single family units, followed by 20% with condominiums. We have the plan unit development, single family more than one house per parcel, and then duplex, triplex, and fourplexes. And then a very small bucket of other. Where our non-homestead, you can see it's a little bit broader categories where we're looking at 26%, the largest amount is those condominiums. We have 25% at single-family homes, and then our hotel motels of 50 units or more make up 19% of that revenue tax base. We have condo conversions, apartments, condo and hotel motel, and then duplex, triplex, and fourplex. Our other category, there's a bunch of different categories how Pinellas ranks and looks at parcel and property types and property use descriptions. So that could be anything from a timeshare to hotels and motels that are 49 units or less, apartments 5 to 9 units, vacant, residential, planned unit developments. And so there's a lot of different pieces that make up that other bucket as well. So then when we're looking at our homestead versus non-homestead, what that assessed value is, and what our both commercial and residential are. This slide is showing exactly what those dollar amounts are, what we're getting, and what that property tax base looks like. So with our, you can see that commercial, no homestead is a large bucket. Condo, that's non-homestead. Condo, yes, and residential, no and yes, make up the biggest pieces of our tax base here in St. Pete Beach. And this is just another pie chart way to look at those dollars that I just showed you. So again, you can see how those pieces and parts break out when we look at it in that area. We think it's important to always show how we compare to other municipalities within Pinellas County. So you can see this is showing what our city millage is, and this is our current millage at that 30913. Our total millage, so how much are we paying in totality, either to the county, other districts, school, EMS, and the cities included in that? And then what is our population compared to our neighboring cities in Pinellas County? So this is the options that we get from Pinellas County. So you can go on to their website and you can calculate a maximum millage levy. The gross taxable value for St. Pete Beach is actually lower than it was last year. This is the first time that's occurred since 2008. And the reason for that is just the diminished value of our building structures and all of our properties damaged by the hurricanes. So our rollback rate is actually higher than what our current rate is, which has to do with those factors that I mentioned. So the rollback rate would make our ad valorem revenue more or less is the same as last year. That's why the calculation is higher. You can also see what the other buckets are. So there's majority vote maximum millage rate allowed, 2/3 vote maximum millage rate allowed, and then our current isn't listed on this slide, but that's what we did build the budget off of. So if we take a deeper dive into these numbers, and we're looking at all of these different categories for our homestead status and our parcel type, the sum of our municipal taxable value, and the number of parcels that exist in each one of those, you can see what an average taxable value is. So on average, if you're looking at our residential, for example, and they are a homesteaded property, right now they would pay $1,797 to our property tax base. So this is just explaining what the different funders are, where if we look at one of the larger ones under our commercial, they're going to pay $9,179, for example. So you can see those different tax-based structures and how the homestead versus non-homestead applies to our revenue tax base. And then we wanted to take a look at it and say, okay, what is our lowest property on each one of these categories, and what is our highest? So what's the highest that somebody could pay, and what's the lowest somebody could pay, looking at these different rates. So our current rate is at that 3.0913. Then we have our rolled back rate, majority vote max rate, and our 2/3 vote max millage. So What does it look like for the lowest resident? It's a really good deal at $2.63. And what does it look at for our highest resident at the $240? So we wanted to just be able to show what that looks like in each one of these different categories as well. So then, if we were to take this and translate that into what the impacts on the budget are, so again, our budget is based off of that current millage. So we have in there the 15,785,506 minus our 80% for the 4% for folks that pay early. So that number is what's in our budget. Then we have our rollback rate, which would generate approximately $140,000 more for the city. The majority vote max rate, which would generate just over $859,412. And then we have our 2/3 vote max millage, which would bring us up to about 2.5 million. So that's how that translates in dollars for the budget. So if everything were to remain the same, and there was no changes to our assessed value, this is what 10 years of each one of those increased property taxes would look like. So at the end of fiscal year 2035, we would have $8.5 million that could go for different projects or things of that nature. And then if we did the 2/3 vote max millage, we would have $25.2 million at the end of those 10 years. So that's just another way to look at what does a 10-year forecast look like for the city if everything remained the same. So then Camden is here, and he was nice enough to go back through and say, okay, what other priority projects could we accomplish if there was an increase to the millages? So you can see here we have stormwater system cleaning and inspection, we have shoreline protection improvements, and we have the Don Cesar boat ramp items in here over, and that's looking at the majority vote max at the 3.2. If we went to the 2/3 vote max millage at the $25.2 million over 10 years, you can see we have some additional projects on here like the Bella Vista Basin, the Don Cesar Basin Resiliency 1 and 2. So you can see that there's some added projects on there in the event that that were to be the case. So what we're asking for recommendations for today from this commission is just to look at these different options. So one is to, accept where we're at with our operational budget as presented. Option A is the current millage, or that 15.7 million, adopting our CIP as presented. And again, as we talked about last meeting, not putting any money into that resiliency fund because we're not projecting an increase in our property tax. And so that resiliency fund was designed to take 50% of any increase in that ad valorem and be siphoned over for resiliency projects. Since we're not projecting an increase in our ad valorem, since we went down, then we don't have any funding that we could divert over to that area per the comp plan. We have B, which is a rollback rate of the 3.1189, or that would end up putting 70,000 into the resiliency fund and 70,000 into capital. The majority vote max at the 3.2596 generates the 429,706 to the resiliency fund and 429,706 over to CIP. And then we have the 2/3 vote max millage, the 3.5856 or 18.3 million, where we would take 1.2 into resiliency and 1.2 into CIP. And then of course, we like options. So we have option E, which is 50% of any mill increase into the resiliency fund and 50% provide direction on where you'd like to allocate it. So those are the three options. At this time, we could pause, talk about ad valorem, and then I can take you through the changes since the last time we met on the budget, if that works for the committee.
Yeah.
Yes, let's please do that. Take a pause and have some discussion.
Okay.
What you got?
It's kind of funny, rollback rate, you know, I think of going into Walmart and it says rollback,
I was thinking the same thing.
and the price is lower. And this rollback goes up. So
It's the
I guess
opposite direction.
I attribute that to accounting,
Politics.
a different way of looking at things.
Yeah,
I
that
got
was-
a lot to say.
Oh dear, Tim, let it out.
All right, so I guess looking at this, when we were sent it earlier today, a couple of my thoughts are, number one is government's the only organization that is allowed to demand revenues from their revenue source. Everybody else has to choose to give you. So that's one thing that we have to understand as we're doing this. We're demanding revenues. We're demanding people's hard-earned money to put towards these things, whether we feel like we need them or not. People are still hurt from the hurricanes, and I do understand that. My biggest issue is, and I lost my 2019 financial statements in Helene, so I came down here and I picked up the newest ones, and then we went back to 2020, but it's the same thing as 2019. From 2020 to 2026, revenues have gone up 56%. 56% from 2020 to 2026. That's a lot. We used to manage the city with basically 2/3 of what we have now. And then, so, and I understand that the cost of living has gone up, CPI has gone up, but if you increase it, I guess 5% every year, we're still about 2 million to 3 million over what we should be. So correct me if I'm wrong, but St. Pete Beach didn't expand. Nothing new was put in the service in order to raise these taxes. It's just the value of the properties have gone up, and the trade of homestead properties have caused it to increase. So with that being said, services shouldn't have gone up more than CPI. And right now, we're talking about 116% increase in our expenses from 2020. I know we had COVID that year. If you look at 2019, it's about the same. 100. So I guess my thing is, we should be able to run the city using less money. And you know, it's not up to the residents that bear the burden. It's up to the city to bear the burden of increasing the use of each dollar that we have.
Well, some of that did some of that go towards the beach expansion project in Paso Grove?
I took out the capital expenses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the 56%, so the 116% is, I took out the capital, actually it was 117%. I took out the capital fund that way because that's discretionary. I feel that's discretionary. So this is just non-discretionary items. And then not only that, when we look at 2019, 2020, every fund had a surplus in it when the year was done. Now, I know we're running on a balanced budget. That's because we have a surplus that we're working with from the prior year. But now we have, all except for one fund, which is the parking fund, we have deficits in. So, I mean, that's something that we have to work on. That being said, I feel that we have a good budget this year. I feel that we have a new director of finance and a new city manager that can work with this budget, and they will figure out the nuances of St. Pete Beach, which is different from any other city, and throughout this year. And I think next year we're going to have to make hard decisions. I don't feel we should put that on the residents' backs.
I think that was well said, but I don't know enough to say that that's all. I mean, I don't know how you would respond to that in the sense of, I mean, is that doable?
The budget?
Well, yeah, and then kind of like what he's saying is just, you know, making sure, like going forward and using less. Are we, to what I heard from you is, are we using more than we really need?
Yes, and we should compare what we're spending to prior COVID. A lot of things have went downhill, not only in cities, organizations, but companies also. We forgot how to do business like we did before COVID. But I think if we give the two of you a year, I think that you can figure this out, and we'll have to be a lot more stringent on next year's budget. And I guess what I'm saying is, we have a 56% of increase in revenues. We should really have, if you do increase 5% per year, we should really only have a 30% increase in revenues. The difference between that, the delta, should really go into capital projects.
I can respond because I
Yeah, that'd be great.
have some other thoughts you might want to consider. So I think, one, I want to point out that from what I've seen of the historical budget documents, you've never seen a capital program pulled together that demonstrates the true cost to run a city. And I don't agree that capital's discretionary. It's the core of what keeps a city running. So what we're trying to present to you is you have quite a few delayed, and you have deferred infrastructure maintenance that was not included in prior budgets. You have failing infrastructure that if we don't attend to, we're going to have severe issues.
Bigger.
Also, I would say, I mean, I've worked in several cities. This city's relatively skinny. So when you say tough questions, it's cutting services. There isn't much fluff here to, you have services that are provided that are basic services. And so when you go into things like, I can't cut your public services, we barely have enough to maintain the system, and that's why we're here. That's why we're where we're at right now, is a lack of maintenance for a decade.
Yeah.
So if I cut there, you're just going to perpetuate what you're dealing with. We have a sheriff's department, sheriff's office. So actually we have a proposal to cut some public safety in this budget. But you can only go so low with public safety. And we have a fire department, nothing to cut there. And so that leaves you with your recreation services, which we are doing a fee study to determine whether this body, as well as your parks department, wants to increase those fees for service. Those are direct service items that one could say are luxuries, one could say they're the heart of the community. And you basically have a library and beach maintenance. So there isn't much fluff. I've been trying to rebuild the finance department at the moment. With COVID, I would say, I can bring this data back to you, but labor has probably doubled in 6 years, the cost of labor. And so not only the cost, but we have labor shortages. So I'm telling you, I can't solve your problem next year and fix all your infrastructure just by cutting the budget. That is not the solution that would, I think, be good for this community. We are doing several fee studies around sewer, stormwater, and reclaim water. Those funds have not been running positive for several years. They did not have capital identified, nor maintenance. I mean, well, maintenance was fine in some of those, but no capital included. So again, we're doing those fee studies, but at the end of the day, there's so much need, you won't be able to fix it with the bucket of money you have. So we will have to prioritize and decide where you want to put. If you don't want to do any increases, there's only so much we can accomplish.
I think we have to do a fee increase, and that was talked about last year by the commissioners. And we brought that up at that point, and they had a discussion, and there was going to be a fee study. And we looked at these, the funds, the stormwater and things like that, and how we were siphoning, what, 400,000 off of that in order to just
Correct.
run it. So I think it's proper that we have to increase the fees and take a look. Have we completed that fee study?
No, we're getting close.
Okay. When do you think?
We were going to try to have it wrapped up for this budget. We should be completed with it likely in September, so we'd bring back a mid-year adjustment with any of those. But then, of course, there's the public engagement and all of those pieces and parts that need to come with that study for recommendations as well. So that public input piece is important.
Okay, is parking included in that fee study?
It is.
Okay.
We talked about that last time, that you said
Yeah.
you would have it like in, October, I think September, October.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I just wanna
arguably-
make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Yes, yep.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
And arguably, if the fee studies, again, we won't be able to fix those overnight because I think they are, because capital has not been included. And we need so much infrastructure and especially sewer, as well as stormwater. It's going to take some time to increase those because you're not going to be able to come in and just make it up over a year what we haven't done for, again, a decade. So we would be coming back with some proposal to say this is what we need, but this is the proposal to sort of work up to it. We're also looking at some development impact fees. So once, if we can get the enterprise funds healthy, that will put some money back into the general fund to work with. And that's the, I guess, the bucket of money that if we can realize it by giving back to the general fund from the enterprise funds, then the commission and the committees could look at putting that into the resiliency fund.
All right, just Devin, if you can do your calculation. We looked at a single-family home, a resident, $711,000. What would that rollback rate result in an increase in their tax?
711,000?
Yeah.
I think we had that on the slide, right? I don't think I have to calculate. I think it was on one of them.
500.
Yeah, it was. That's where I drew that number.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
perfect, okay. Yeah, let's see. So 711,000, that is that's your total residential, so that it would end up being $19 a year.
Okay. And I just wanted to highlight that so everybody isn't just scared that, well, we can't increase. You know, we're gonna have to pitch in $20 or
Well, I
$40.
mean, you were at that commission meeting with me where the stormwater topic was top of mind for everybody that was there, and they were really worried if another hurricane came, how that was going to handle things. They didn't like the orange fence that's over on the other side. They were really wanting the beach to look close to what it used to sooner than later, and especially the people in the homes that face the beach. The orange fence and all the construction trucks and stuff were of top of mind for them. So anyway, if we can, I think we should at least do some of these projects.
Isn't that on the capital projects that we have already
We do,
approved?
for next year, yeah.
Yeah.
Not the stormwater system cleaning, is it?
No. I was referring to the fence.
Oh, fence,
The
yes.
wall.
Yeah, that is.
The wall.
But it's the stormwater too that they brought up and had issues with.
And Lake Passagro,
Yes,
yeah.
that's the place I'm representing, I believe.
Isn't the scoping and cleaning already included in, I think it was the
I
second?
think we have it in this next, where is
Yeah.
Camden? It's in 2026, right? Yes.
So my comment isn't taking anything out. My comment is just for the future. And I understand what you're saying, and you're right, the salaries have gone up more than anything else. But again, looking at a 52.5% increase in taxes since 2020, and then 117% increase in expenses, that's a lot. I mean, the story, and that's why I can go back and I can look at all the salaries in 2020 versus the salaries now. But that'll probably take out, I don't know, that'll probably bring it down to maybe about equal, 50-some percent increase in expenses. But I still think a 52% increase in taxes over 6 years is a lot.
But again, we haven't done maintenance.
That's what I was just gonna say. And I'm so new, like we both started, so I don't know the history and stuff, and I don't know how we were doing all the maintenance and the deferred and, or not the deferred, but the sewer and all that. And I know and I agree, because being flooded, we all are scared that we need to get that done. And if that just was always tabled and never addressed, then money needs to go to that. You know, so thank God we've had that increase to have that money to be able to do projects that we haven't done. Is that correct to say? Because I wasn't here before.
Yeah, so, and I want to stress, fixing the infrastructure of this city, one, it's more costly to live by the beach, just the infrastructure,
Sure.
not just housing.
Right.
Maintaining infrastructure in this kind of environment is more difficult than inland. So yes, we are trying to map out a plan of how do we get there, and I'm even saying 2 decades. Like not just cleaning we need to do. We have been talking about maintenance has to happen,
Yeah.
but
And
the
I just think just
fixing and
someone to plug,
repair.
in my neighborhood, I saw city workers cleaning off the drains. Because, you know, we've had a lot of flooding because the drains
Mm-hmm.
were, so that made me happy. I just want to give a plug to whoever coordinated that. It's the first time I've ever seen
That's
that.
Camden.
Thank you, because I've never seen that, and we're all nervous, and when it rains and floods, and just from a regular rain, you know, so the fact that we sent people out, that was money spent, well spent. You know, I mean, people are going to see that and feel that and go, oh, thank God we're working on some stuff.
Yes.
So I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to say a positive thing there.
Well, and
Thank you.
$20 on 700,000 doesn't sound like very much for projects.
It's not, but
It's the
I still want
optics.
to have a dissenting voice in it, not that descend on the vote, but I want everybody to
I like
know what's
that, yeah.
happened
Yeah.
in the past.
No, it's great. It's a great eye opener, you know, and I wish I was in the past to be able to help justify or not even justify, but understand, you know. So, I mean, I would be asking the same thing.
And I think part of what's going to help, hopefully, with that narrative and that story is us tracking those percentages to show if we ask for the funding that we're using it, and then if we're not using it, then we're answering to this committee and the commission and the city manager as to why we didn't utilize that funding. So that is a precedence that we built this budget off of. And then when we initially kicked this off, Francis asked all for Camden and other folks that have capital projects to say, you know, what is our list? What does it look like? Because I remember our first meeting, we came to you guys and showed like $50 million deficit, because we can't do all of that in 1 year, but that's the reality of the situation of our infrastructure and where we're at with some of those projects. So I did want to highlight that just to, because I mean, I understand what you're saying about the percentages, and so we want to be accountable for those items.
The next question I have is, one of the slides has said that a portion of our taxes go to other municipalities. Do we get taxes from any other municipality? Do we get any income from any other? So if ours goes to other municipalities,
Do we get some?
do we get anything back?
So we do receive the 3 point, I think it's up to 3.7 now in EMS contribution. And then we receive, but that's sales tax, so
So if Indian Rocks
We also
Beach,
get penny for Pinellas, which is a tax that comes back for roads. We are pursuing right now with the county a concept of seeing if we can get some assistance from bed tax for beach maintenance and some beach capital projects that directly relate to tourism. That's in the works. We're also working with Pinellas Forward in the county right now to see if we can increase our percentage in multimodal impact fees that are collected at the development phase. So there are opportunities for us to partner with some of our outside agencies to bring more money in, and those conversations and relationships are actively being built right now. And I would say we have opportunities to bring some more money back. And we are working very hard to do that right now.
yeah,
Some of the comments I've heard at the county commission level is raise your taxes. Unfortunately, that's how they view it. And if you saw our chart there, we're one of the lowest. And for a city of 10,000, let's say 9 to 10,000, you can see we are definitely at the bottom.
But when reality kicks in, they're saying, well, no, you guys are very fortunate. The county's saying, you're very fortunate. We're going to take your money and send it to other districts. Is that
So-
what they're?
So the other district bucket, I was just relooking at that, it's 1.0359 that is taxed on every municipality, every fire district. It's controlled at the county level. And then for our emergency medical services, that is 0.0850. And that is across the board for every municipality that's in Pinellas County.
So that goes into a bucket, and it's not necessarily it doesn't go directly to other districts. It just, they get to decide how that's dispersed.
I can find out more on what that is actually utilized for, but that is something that the county controls and collects on behalf of all of the cities. So that's part of their cost, or part of their millage.
I can't find, what slide was that?
This one?
Oh, no, it was, I thought it was a slide that said that,
Where it went to the EMS,
yeah,
that's like
Oh, that was
the
the
picture of the money.
yeah.
That was the first slide.
Okay, there it is.
And
So it's just-
schools are really the highest part of that, I think in this calculation, and maybe $4,000.
It's 5.820 mils is what the schools collect.
And so
across.
you said only 1% of that is other districts.
Oh, how much of the 80% is?
Oh, hold on, I have to run a calculation. Sorry.
I guess what I'm getting to is, we're saying that we're in dire need. We have deferred maintenance, which is a lot more expensive than just doing the maintenance up front, preventive maintenance. And we're giving some of our funds to other districts when we probably need it more than them. I guess there's nothing that we can do about it. I just thought that, okay, we're making money to send to other districts in Pinellas County when we really need it ourselves.
So the other districts is Pinellas County Planning Council, Juvenile Welfare Board, and the Southwest Florida Water Management District.
Okay.
That's where that funding is going.
Okay. I thought it was going to Clearwater. Okay.
Any other discussion? You want to bring up that slide again then, Jenny, please, the decision-making slide? What is that, number 17?
Oh, there you go.
Too fast.
All right, everybody had a chance to read it? No more discussion on it? Do we want to give our recommendation?
What's our recommendation?
I'm going to recommend the rollback rate.
I agree on that. I do think that we should have a separate line for discounts taken for tax, though. I know we added it into the tax actual line, but as we raise, I'd like to see how much the discount goes up or down, how much people that accept the discount goes up or down. I think that'd be valuable for us in the future, too.
Okay.
But I agree, B.
I think it's a fair compromise, would be.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, I mean, can we work with B and then come back to you next year and say, what do we look like right now?
I think that's always the best way to do it, and that's why, we have these meetings and things like that. Take a look at what actually comes in. We're still awaiting some of that money to come from the county, the $813 million. We're hoping that some of that is going to assist our recoveries and things like that. We talked about when we do things, we should do things better, make them more resilient. And I think that's the services that people would really want. I mean, we that endured the hurricane, you can use the water, you can't use the water. You can use the sewer, you can't use the sewer. I think paying for these services to actually work and function for us is the right way to run the city.
1,000%.
Can you go back to the slide where it says what we can do with each of these? I
Yeah, yep,
actually, I
absolutely.
closed my slides on my little
No, that's
laptop.
okay.
so- I want-
We didn't put one for option B,
For
so
B,
that
okay.
we would just take that 70,000 and put that into the resiliency fund, and then we could do 70,000 in CIP, or if this group or the commission says something different, then we could allocate that differently.
I guess the last question, before we discuss the allocation, is do we feel comfortable with the amount of funds that we have on reserve if hopefully not another hurricane hits us?
I'll jump to that slide quickly, and then we can jump backwards again.
Francis, I thought you talked about that during 2 meetings ago, that we were good with the amount of money that we had set up there.
Yep, Devin's going to show you, we're bringing you a budget that is going to give us a little more than 3 months of operating expenditures. If you look at the lower right-hand corner, 8.7 million.
I thought
So-
last time that it said like 11 to 12 million is what we need.
So that is based on what we encumbered for the hurricanes. Where we're at with our actual expenditures is that is closer in line with, I think we're sitting at about 8.5 million in expenditures for Helene and Milton. So that was one of the items that we're going to bring as part of our next workshop, is what is a proper fund balance policy. I mean, we know worst case scenario, but as a community, should we hold that money over and plan for worst case scenario, or should we follow what our financial advisors recommend, or what the Government Finance Officers Association recommends, which is usually a percentage of your operating? That's an area where we can work with this committee to determine what are we comfortable with as a community. Helene is obviously a worst case scenario, so do we plan for the worst case, or do we say we're okay if we have 6.4 approximately 2 to 3 months, or we want to do a 25% or a 20%, I've seen done as well. So I think that's the question, is what are we comfortable with?
Right?
That's a
That is-
hard question to
That's a
answer
great
right
question.
now,
Oh,
especially
boy.
as the Gulf temperature's going up.
Yeah, I think we should have 20 million in the PE bank for that.
You don't want too much because they got to be able to use it, access it, but you want enough that rainy day fund, worst case scenario, and I think that is the worst case scenario. But when I was, a couple of the things that I was thinking about when I looked at that slide of which one we should be voting on was, we kind of need to build this up a little bit more, because right now it's I thought of 12 million, but the price of it could be going up as time goes by, inflation, CPI. So-
Absolutely.
And one last question. If we didn't have Helene and Milton, would we be talking about an increase in taxes?
That's a great question.
Yes, you're going to talk about this every year now when we bring this forward, because you have so much capital. And what we're trying to do is, I like to build guardrails if you do ever go down a millage increase, because I don't think it should go into operating, to your point. We need to learn to live within the means, inflation. You run a tight operation, and this gives you guardrails to some degree. Your comp plan provides that 50% of it goes into this resiliency fund that's limited to use for that. In order to change that, the elected body would have to change it. So I don't, as city manager, can't start moving money around and buying, park slides and new pools. It's really meant to go to that. And then the other half, the idea was if we ever get there, that we're setting up project numbers now in our new financial system, and so we would lock the money down in that project. The budget would be adopted with that money allocated, and in order to change it, again, you would need the majority of the elected body to change it. So we're trying to put those guardrails in place where I think they weren't before. So people feel confident that I'm buying a new tight inlet valve, or, what are you buying with your hard-earned money?
I don't have any more questions or comments.
All right, I think we're good. Let's move on.
Okay. So now I'm going to take you just through our summary of changes. So kicking it off here with the general fund, we did update our contribution that we received from Pinellas County. So that for operations is 3.7 million and 700,000 for capital because we're replacing 2 rescue vehicles next year. I fixed the miscellaneous 3.2 million that I had parked in for parking revenue that I had parked in miscellaneous revenue. So I changed that, and you can see that broken out separately. And then based on our conversation last year or last meeting where we talked about the ad valorem tax update with the 4% that we know take that discounted rate. So that's been projected in there as well. Under multimodal, those revenues, we updated those to better reflect a 5 to 10 year scenario, and that's subject to change with our county discussions that Francis mentioned. And then under capital, we updated our description on our security and safety project, and we are getting $3 million in revenue for Fire Station 22. So we added the $3 million in for the revenue as well as the $3 million for the expense for that project. And then for the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office contract, we're going to be adding in some clarifications on responsibilities of what those CPDSs do. And then we're reducing that from 3 to 2. And then we're also looking at reducing our off-duty maximum of 250,000 to 100,000. So those are some changes as we're looking at operating revenue and capital.
Can I stop you there?
Sure.
Okay, just so the audience can hear this, what is CPDS? Just let them know what that is.
It's community policing deputies. So on top of your normal day-to-day operations for the sheriff's office, the city had chosen to go with 3 community policing deputies. We see that as kind of out of line with some of our neighboring communities. Madeira Beach, for example, only has 2. Currently, so these are in addition to the day-to-day operations. In addition, in our contract with the Sheriff's Department, it wasn't clearly defined what those roles were that they were actually to do. So that's our first recommendation is to clarify those roles and, say what our expectations of and then hold them accountable. What we also found that previously when we had 2 of those community policing deputies, they were actually more productive than today when you look at the numbers of having 3. So we felt like it was a smart financial decision to reduce it down to 2 and then just manage it more effectively. I think we'll be, have more productivity out of those 2 positions. So that's why we did this.
Thank you. So just a little bit of history on the community policing deputy sheriffs. When we had our own police department, they knew where there was potential trouble spots. They knew the intel, if you would, for our community. They knew where and when to look for these things. So that's the design of the community policing deputy sheriff is they're more associated with your community. They understand who the people are, the trouble spots, and can more effectively apply law enforcement when needed. So I just want people to understand what those are. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so then in our summary of changes of personnel, so we are looking at, this budget does include the phase 2 reorganization of our leadership team. So these are reclassifications, no net budget impact, just classifications. So you can see those listed out there. We learned from the last storms that we need a level of an emergency preparedness specialist. So that's not necessarily a full-time option or a job that we need here, but this person would look at doing 60% of their time to be doing the centralized coordination of emergency preparedness, as well as with the new Senate Bill 180. So that's a change. And then for benefits, I talked a little bit about this last time, but piloting our per employee per month. So we took what is our average cost for each employee for the insurance that they're electing, and how can we better plan on a budget process by not putting in the budget what that person has elected, but what is our average cost for that cost of benefits. We did look at doing an employee plus plans and implementing the budget without increases. Which is subject to our personnel rules and regulations. And then we're going to test this because we actually had a flat benefit renewal. So kudos to our healthy employees for taking care of themselves. So we're going to do this as a trial and see how that goes. But really at its core, it's an employee retention and recruitment tool. for our benefit packages. And then we're still tracking CPI. I check every day to see if June has come out. So right now we have that 2.6 cost of living adjustment, and we're looking at that on a regional market condition. So what is it for this area specifically? And then as far as the commissioner pay, since this committee did recommend an increase in compensation, we did put that as part of a budget placeholder. As we understand, that would require a vote of the people. So just wanted to put that out there. So when we're looking at our summary of revenues by fund, this hasn't changed since we met last time, other than the items that I've already discussed. So that's just your high-level pie chart. The Colonel had asked how can we break this out further? So when we're looking at this pie chart, that $10 million or 28% is grants. So a lot of that is our what we expect to either receive under FEMA reimbursement, other local grants that we have for projects. Then you can see we have wastewater charges for services, so that's currently what we're showing, and then those transfers from the general fund, 5.2 million. Our parking facilities, the transfer from the general fund of 4,037,000, that's going into our capital projects, which is inclusive of that 1.2 million in insurance money. You can see we have some state grants there. Our penny for Pinellas is that number that we get from the county every year, so what percentage are they projecting that? And then our building permit fees, reclaimed water service charges, and then our Storm 2 assessment. So these are all kind of our top 10 non-general fund revenues.
Thank you for including that.
Yeah. So our summaries of expenditures by fund, again, I've talked about some of those changes, so I won't spend too much time on these items. We did add in what our fund balance ending or projected fund balancing ending is in our budget summary. So you can see that here. What that is showing is whether or not we're dipping into our existing fund balance to pay for projects or services, or if we're putting money back into it. And this is a glance at our proprietary, our enterprise funds, and what's going on there. You can see, with the exception of parking, that we're dipping into each one of those fund balances. So we talked about this one already. This is our governmental general fund. So we do, as far as GFOA is concerned, or our financial advisor, that 2 to 3 months or 6.4 million is an okay operating reserve. But again, we need to discover what we're actually comfortable with. Are we planning for worst case? Are we planning for a normal year? What does that look like? So we'll bring some recommendations back to this group to consider.
Okay.
And then our general fund revenue, so this is just showing, 49%, almost 50% is our taxes. We have our intergovernmental revenue, our charges for services, and then a very small bucket for fines and forfeitures. I talked about the items that changed on here already, so that's our ad valorem. That is our county EMS, which I think is on the next slide. Yep. Our county EMS revenues that we received from them was a change, and then you can see where'd my parking go. There's the 3.2 broken out for transfer for parking fund from the parking fund, which was previously in miscellaneous revenue. So our expenditures, the biggest change that was presented throughout this was just pivoting to that per employee per month model when we're looking at our benefit structure. So again, instead of saying I am on a family plan where someone else is on a single plan, we're just taking that total budgetary amount, an average of what we would expect for that to cost, and applying that to our budget.
Devin?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, this caught my eye and I went to look at it. The Mary Pier, we're showing 48,000. We think that will be up and running for 2026. I see that you have a line item there.
Everyone's looking at you.
On slide 29.
The hope is certainly that the Mary Pier Bait Shack is back up and running. In that time, we have a lot of, there's a lot of complicated issues with it, from permitting to repair to, but certainly, our hope is to get it back up and running. Certainly, the community has voiced, support to get that facility back up and running, so we're really doing everything we can, so
Okay.
we are very hopeful.
All right. Thanks.
Problem. Okay, so again, this is just looking at our general fund and where we have kind of where that budget funding is going. So when we're looking at our operationals, law enforcement, fire, and EMS are the bigger buckets of expenses, and then followed by public services. And that non-departmental is those transfers out or any debt service that we have. So I left this slide on here. Again, we did mention that we would put in some budgetary holdover. In community development, we did have a building clerk position that was listed out of the general fund that actually needed to be out of the building fund. So that was one change that we made here. So that's why you're seeing the 5.1 to 4.1. The position didn't go away, it just moved. We already talked about some of those reorganization, reclassifications within the leadership team. And then in law enforcement, we talked about those changes as well and what that budgetary dollar looks like. So 3.5 million with those changes that we're looking at. And this will likely change as well. They have some administrative fees, so once they rerun the calculations for us, we'll put what that dollar figure is in here. Fire department, I left this on here so that y'all could see that we do have those charges for services or our EMS contributions, the 3.748 and the 700,000 that are coming back in and covering our costs with our emergency medical services. So no changes personnel. Public services, this is where we have the emergency preparedness specialist, so just wanted to call out that that position formerly was listed as administrative specialist, so that's a change.
And you said that's part-time?
It's a full-time position. 40% of their time would be spent doing administrative work. The other 60% approximately we would be doing emergency preparedness.
And that's in direct support to the chief's realignment with the NIMS construct?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, so that's with the chief and our public services director.
Okay.
Library department, we went back through. The part-time positions are always really fun to budget for because we're looking at on an hourly basis. So this was just a cleanup item where we brought it back to what it should be, which is 7.4 FTEs. Recreation and aquatics, I have this listed on here with the leadership change, so you can see that. Leadership change, same thing with aquatics, so just wanted to be very transparent about what we had. And then in our non-departmental, these are all of our revenues that aren't tied, once again, to a very specific department, so they're listed under non-departmental, and we already talked about those changes. Building fund, so this is where that clerk position was allocated to. Instead of within the general fund, it should have been with this group initially. And then the multimodal fund, right now, that is a very preliminary placeholder. As I mentioned, we're trying to work with the county to determine what our options are here for those revenues. Capital fund, so I talked about this as well. The increase in our intergovernmental revenue is up $3 million, and concurrently, or that other pair side to that is under our buildings, yes, under our buildings where we're showing that Fire Station 22. So those positions funded by department, again, you can see 159.6 included in this budget. And then in our capital improvement funds, I mentioned that we updated our safety security system project description. And then you can see Fire Station 22, we brought forward that $3 million. So we're looking at doing $4.5 million worth of work in 2026 for that fire station project.
And that's going to come in ahead of schedule, right, Camden?
This is just the updated description on that project. So just talking about the different coordination of public safety, deter criminal activity, and what we're looking at for, and why that project is critical.
It's critical? The
Safety,
camera.
yep.
Camera security, so the current security badge system we have right now is similar to what kind of Francis was describing on the infrastructure front. When I got here about 2 years ago, the infrastructure on the IT side had been really ignored for 15, 20 plus years, so kind of been slowly but surely trying to replace core components so that the infrastructure stays up and functioning, and this is one of those kind of last holdouts. So we've got an old, really dated system. We don't have proper support or maintenance on it. It's expensive to get badges replaced to support that system. There's not a lot of capability or flexibility with regard to how we allocate security within those badges. And then our intent is to not only replace that badge system, but coupled with that, add some cameras and security cameras throughout the city buildings to provide that extra layer of security for entrances and exits coming in and out of our buildings.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So again, you can see with the fire station, just bringing forward that additional $3 million that we're receiving so we can work on that project. I'm sorry, I guess I had that in there twice. We'll look at it again. 159.6. Okay, so that brings us to our next meeting. We'll go through our tentative budget book and any summary of changes from the previous version. What this committee will see is any capital projects that we're expecting to straddle the 2 fiscal years, bringing forward any of that budget that we need to include, similar to what Francis was discussing earlier. So you'll see budget from 25 for capital moving into 26 so we can continue to work on those projects. That'll be the biggest change that I would expect to see, unless somebody gets us a ton of money somewhere or something like that. But we'll just keep going through the process of trying to keep you all engaged in seeing where we're making changes as part of the budget process.
All right. So we gave our recommendation then to carry forward to the commissions. So thanks for everybody's thoughtful input on that. We have any other closing comments? Department heads, do you have anything you'd like us to hear? Because our ears are open. The more craniums that go into this, the better.
The only question I have is, did we put any thought behind a special benefit district, like the hotel district or something? And I've seen that before where you have a special tax with 12 cents or something like that.
I think we looked at that back in 2015. We explored that option for the large hotel district.
Didn't we talk about it last meeting?
I thought we did talk about it last week, but I didn't hear anything.
So what we are doing, and maybe it's a little different, I think we're looking at a community redevelopment agency,
Yeah, that's it.
and that is being presented to the commission on Tuesday to get authority to move forward with the finding of necessity, which is required. And it basically creates a taxable district that we get to get county increment tax back into the community as the property tax values grow.
So is that, do we have like a baseline and then it provides services above the baseline?
You have a baseline when you start the district, and then every time the valuation goes up, you get a share of the county portion of the tax back into that district, and you can use it for infrastructure. You have to prove that the area is blighted. So we are looking at a specific area of the city. It's actually not the hotel district. It's up here in this District 1.
Yes.
Yes. So down Corey, all of these kind of businesses and retail, and a little, trying to get my north of 75th.
The one last thing that I'm going to bring up too is I've seen that happen, and then associated with that is a not-for-profit that has its own board, but it's associated, and it's for buildings and residents that want to donate towards these city projects. And I've seen that work before, so that's just another idea in the future for adding to that revenue line.
Yeah, so we also are, I think we heard you share that idea before, and we started work with the city attorney's office and the communications manager, who actually has experience in nonprofit development, so we're trying to see legally how we form that. And we also thought if people wanted to donate to purchase property in the city, those sort of things, you can set up where residents can align their trusts if they want to leave something from their trust at some point to help build open space in the city and those sort of things. So yes, once you said that, I started the research, so we're trying to see if we can pull that together.
Yeah, the only way I saw that work was when we had a very broad target, it didn't work at all. But when it was well-defined,
Okay,
you had people that wanted to donate because they knew what their money was going to.
okay, good feedback. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Nothing from me.
All right. I think that brings this meeting to an end. Thank you, everybody. Department heads, thank you once again. Devin and Francis, thank you very much. Jenny, thank you.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.